Charles Dunn, 9-1. Michael Feng versus 9-1 Charles Dunn. We're back to Classic Constructed. It is rock and roll time as Michael Feng loads up on the Tunic and starts the game.
I think some of the key stuff here to note, just going into this, if you've never seen this Fatigue Briar, you got the Crown of Seeds, right? And you got that Reaping Blade. Some cards that you typically don't see in the Briar deck, right? That's one of the telltale signs that, hey, this is the Fatigue Briar.
So opening up here with the pitch to the Grasp of the Arcanite. Create a rune chant, and we're starting off with an Enlightened Strike. Mode to be determined. Looks like it's going to go for the +7. Or sorry, the +2 to get up to 7.
Yep, send in that rune chant as well. This is an interesting block here. I mean, Michael Feng is sitting with a nice grip of 4 cards, 2 in Arsenal, so essentially a 6-card hand here. And this is a turn where he can maybe leverage some of the cards in his hand better to... maybe it looks like he's not going to do that. Maybe it looks like he's like, hey, my hand's very sweet. I'm just going to keep it. And if you're Charles in this situation, that's scary, right?
It is scary, but again, you're kind of content that you developed an embodiment of Earth. As the Tunic goes up here, Michael Feng playing with the initial salvo right out of the quiver. It's a Falcon Wing, 3 attack, go again. A great opener for Lexi. That's the kind of card I think you want to open up with your in your arsenal.
Yeah, you love to see it. I think this card was maybe a little bit underrated going into Outsiders, but afterwards everyone sees the power of it. The fact that it just has go again stapled onto it is such a big deal, and it's one of the cards you want to see, to lead off your turn, right? It has go again without having to use one of your Voltaire activations.
That's a Sift, but it's a 4-block Sift. We're going to meet us down the line here with a Heat Seeker activation of Voltaire, loading this up with a 5 go again. Heat Seeker, the second arrow to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Heat Seeker. It gives you like this card advantage. Like this, it doesn't really draw you a card, but it kind of draws you a card, right, on hit. And so like it is a decently threatening on hit.
Hey, where have we seen this before? We're going to go with the Crown of Seeds. Yeah, Briar plays Crown of Seeds now. Get used to it. We're going to dunk a card from Arsenal under the deck, 1 prevention effect. And keep in mind that Brothers in Arms is going to get paid for with the floating resource for the +2 on the block. But the Crown of Seeds covering up the rest, so no damage taken here by Charles Dunn. And I'm guessing that this is going to be the marching orders moving forward.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But, we got more. We got more arrows. Here is a drill shot. Drill shot is another card that it kind of sucks to let it hit, to be honest. And here we just have the full block, right? We have the 3 block plus the 1 from the embodiment. Once again, we talked about this going into this. Getting those breakpoints is really, really important. Being able to cover the cards, cover up all of the damage with a single card is a really a big deal, especially when it comes to like those nasty on-hit effects.
All right, so Death Touch, a card from Outsiders.
Spicy.
Yep, a nice little 6-spot goes through here, and looks like no damage taken once again.
Yeah, Michael was actually talking about how it's kind of like one of their spicy techs to include like blue Death Touch as one of the blues in his deck, and I think it's really, really interesting. It's a nice card to finish off a chain with, like exactly like he did, and it works really well with a lot of the other cards currently running in Lexi, stuff like Ponder or even stuff like that that Heat Seeker.
Michael Feng doing his best here. That was a 4-attack action turn, and what does he have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. It is very difficult, but again, this is going to be a game of attrition, and Michael Feng is going to have to know that he's going to have these stop turns. And how do you like mentally prepare for this kind of thing? Like, you just threw everything in the kitchen sink at him, and you got nothing back but a smile.
This is where you go into the back room and then you grab the bathroom sink. And then you go to the guest bedroom and grab that sink too, because you're throwing as much as you can at them until, they've got a downturn, right? Until they have a turn where they don't have an embodiment, like this turn, actually.
Oh, this is a blast from the past there. Sigil of Suffering, a card from Tales of Aria. It's going to block for 3, but deal 1 arcane right back to Michael Feng. And without Bullseye Bracers, that's almost free money.
Yeah, that does kind of hurt. It is just like a free point of damage. I mean, the Shock Charmers does have a way to prevent it, but it's like a one-shot deal, and you don't really want to waste it on that for sure.
Enlightened Strike, opting to draw a card here. Charles Dunn playing Crown of Seeds. Very important to maintain an arsenal here. And it looks like the 5 damage is going to leak through a bit. And Charles Dunn, the defensive stalwart here, the ultra-aggressive Lexi deck, Cal, here, is not doing much work.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not sure we were going to call this Briar, just Fatigue Briar, Fridge Briar, but it's doing a great job of, preventing all this damage. And Lexi can do a good amount of damage. And here we have just a really interesting card for this deck. It is like basically like a vanilla card, right? Just blocks 3.
Yeah, I believe people are using this as a bookmark right now. Raging Onslaught Red is a common, I think, from Welcome to Wraith.
Yeah, it's like a draft card from Welcome to Wraith. Really cool to see it here at U.S. Nationals.
Yeah, your kid might have this in his the spokes of his bicycle, possibly. It's Raging Onslaught again. It's a 7 attack there, but the most important thing, I think, what the entire design here is got to be 3 blocks, breakpoint attacks, and just leak through and see what happens. The follow-up here is a Bolt and Shot 5.
Yeah, I mean, Bolt and Shot is your bread and butter card for this deck, right? It really staples a lot of the stuff together. Super, super powerful. It's one of the arrows that has basically go again unconditionally with Voltaire and comes in for 5. So, more or less it's like a 0 or 1 to 5, however you want to shake it out. But really, really good card. Threatens an on-hit reload, which is really good. So it's another one that, decent. It's a decently blockable card.
Charles Dunn, no stranger to defensive decks, playing some of those super life gain defensive Bravo lists and Oldham lists way back when, playing cards like Sunkiss. Like, Charles, who hurt you, man?
Yeah, dude, I'll be honest. I'm getting some Oldham flashbacks already, right? You got your D-React into your Crown of Seeds to prevent it. Ooh, we have a nice big old Infecting Shot here.
It's a big one, 3 block here, but you do have, not only do you have the embodiment, you've got cards in hand that you can block, and you still have your Grasp of the Arknight. Infecting Shot is a nasty reality here, but it looks like with the with the embodiment, you're blocking over the top of this bad boy.
Yeah, it does, at least on paper here, does seem like Michael is just kind of like doing that thing where maybe your older sibling just holds your forehead while you kind of swing your arms like into nothing. That's kind of what we got going on here, but the game is still early. We got a lot of flesh and blood here to still play.
Yeah, well, Searing Shot's a nice way to start again. Breakpoints aplenty. There's no embodiment this turn, so this one it might be a little bit more difficult to cover this up, but one way to start that off is to activate the Crown of Seeds. Arsenal to the bottom of the deck, draw a card, 1 prevention floating here. So it looks like with that prevention, as Charles indicated, all right, well, no, nothing having here. And you got to think that Michael Feng here is already calculating, okay, I got to find my Rain Razor's turn. I might even have to pair this up with a double Rain Razor's turn. It might take that to not just, inflict massive pain, but just to break the ice, which he finally does.
Ooh, on the board.
Yeah, and a Command and Conquer following suit here. There's nothing really to target it. It's just pure damage. But in a deck that is rocking a lot of D-Reacts, Command and Conquer might be a very difficult negotiation here, as he's using instead Oasis Respite to just snuff out 4 of the attack, taking 2.
And just a good way to soak up a little bit of damage here. I don't like Oasis Respite is one of the cards that's kind of a no-brainer here. It's kind of a catch-all, and it's great into Icelander, and you can put it into decks like Lexi. Here we have a tiny bit of aggression from Charles.
Hey, it counts. It's Scar for a Scar, and for a deck that plays super tight, plays super defensive. I don't know when this will ever be online, but Charles opting to just say it's a 4 attack, 4/0. So it's getting work done.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been thinking about Michael going up against this Fridge here. He really does need to kind of leverage those really power turns. And the cards we're looking for here from Michael are going to be stuff like Rain Razors, stuff like your 3 of a kinds. And until then, I think this might be the cadence here. We've seen a lot of defensive power from Charles, especially on the back of that Seeds, the Crown of Seeds. And I like how he's just kind of holding this. He's holding his embodiment. He's like, all right, do I get this embodiment?
I know you're not going to do it. I know you're not going to block. So I'm just going to keep this at the ready. Absolutely. It's like that old that salesman tactic of if you give them the contract with the pen in front of it, they're more inclined to sign it. I think that's what he's kind of doing. He's like, no, you're not blocking this. Let me just put this on the board right away.
Yeah, one thing important to note that this is what I imagine Michael is thinking about here is this is still a good break point, right? This is just, coming in for 4. However, Lexi doesn't really block all that well. And to block this out, you have to commit either a piece of equipment, which is huge, or 2 cards from your hand. And it looks like he just is thinking, hey, it's not worth it. You can have your embodiment. It's just not worth it for me to commit, 2 cards to this just, innocuous attack.
Charles drawing into another D-React and E-Strike as well, the third of that said E-Strike. I think he's looking, he's like, yep, they're the other two, no problem. But it's action to Michael Feng here, pitching a Frostlock, looking to just send what is a Withering Shot, I believe? Or is that a...
this is the one that has the on-hit give a Frailty token. This Frailty token, I'm not sure how great it's going to be in this particular matchup. Maybe against like your normal aggro Briar, it could be very, very powerful. But, here against this like Fatigue Briar, they might not care all that much, and they might, leak a little bit of damage here. This isn't exactly one of the arrows that you just want to be like, I need to block this. And here we have that. We leaks just 1 point of damage here because you don't really care that much about the Frailty.
So the Sink Below doesn't cover everything up, but it does allow him to cycle a card from hand. The Frailty token is the on-hit effect, but like you said, unless you're swinging that Reaping Blade or coming out of the arsenal hot, well, it's just for show, ultimately. Sink Below protecting a lot of that life total. Charles Dunn has done an incredible job of insulating that life total, remaining at 34 despite a 4-attack turn from Michael Feng early on. And Michael is thinking, well, I haven't played my Rain Razors yet. Haven't played my 3 of a kinds yet. I haven't had those massively explosive turns. So I think what he's opting to do in this case is thinking, well, maybe if I just sort of wheel through my deck multiple times. Do you think that his strategy here is to save the Rain Razors and all of those power cards for when he sees all those D-Reacts finally get expended?
I think so. Yeah. I think you definitely want to like set up for those really, really big, powerful turns. And when your opponent, is blown through most of their defensive options, it's the best time. Though we see like another Seeds or Crown of Seeds activation that is going to be online basically this entire game. Interesting to note, we did see an activation from the Shock Drummers.
Yeah, and basically Michael trying to go ahead and sneak through. He got the inch and he wants a mile in this case, but ultimately what Charles says is, nice gloves. Check out my hat made of leaves.
Yeah, right? My nice leaf hat will prevent that damage. So we still have the on hit, so he does get the 1 Frailty token.
Ponder as well. I mean, the tokens are starting to show up here, and we're seeing the sheer value of the Crown of Seeds. Falcon Wing, 3, go again, met by that Enlighten Strike.
Yeah, covers up real nicely, and just plays it out. CNC for 6, definitely protecting the arsenal here. I'm not sure if we know exactly what card is in the arsenal, but, it was worth tossing in quite a bit. Toss in his equipment pieces.
Well, even if you just want to protect it, I don't think there's ever a situation here where Charles Dunn is going to use that card. I think he's content to just say, pass over. I have a Tunic up to 3. I need my arsenal because I can Tunic and Crown. I mean, it's odd to say.
Never discount the Crown.
Well, you don't think about it anymore because Oldham's gone. But that was very much a play, is you use your Tunic, Crown, get a 5-card hand, and go crazy here. Ultimately, Charles is kind of playing the same way. There's a lot of defensive capabilities here with this Briar list.
Yeah, I mean, doing a great job of mimicking Oldham. It's like, they're all from the same set, all kind of pals, and it's just, hey, I will take the crown, right? The crown passes to the next elemental earth hero.
I have leaves on my head. You can't touch me. Michael Feng here at 25, 9-1, both players as we enter round 11, the first round of Classic Constructed of 4. We're going to have 14 total rounds today until we make that inevitable cut to top 8. We're going to crown a national champion tomorrow. 530 some odd players, I believe, showed up to throw down, and it is now getting just honed down to the elite as a premeditate is going to buff up this Searing Shot for 7 on hit 8.
Yeah, this is I really like this attack. This is one that it's threatening a couple different axes here, right? That Ponder token you get a lot of value out of that Ponder token. What's really, really important to note here is that Charles does have that embodiment active, I believe. So it is going to cover this entire this whole thing up.
Well, Anthem of Spring is going to help you out here, developing an embodiment of Earth that just sort of helps you immensely. And I think that what Charles is looking to do here says, okay, cool, another block 7. Why not? Use all your red arrows. I still maintained the Tunic as well, and he points to it. Don't need to tick it up. Nothing's changed. However, on the surface, that's what it looks like, Kel. But deep down, what you must be thinking here, if you're Charles, is use your red arrows. We're getting closer to those thin decks that are throwing blue nonsense at me.
I would like to point out that Michael did pitch a Rain Razors. So if we do really get into the super late fatigue game, that Rain Razors that he pitched just now could come back into play. And like you said, maybe set up for a late game where Charles doesn't have the same kind of defensive capabilities that he does currently.
Pitching Anthem here to satisfy the Winter's Bite yellow, asking for a card to discard or a card or two to pay. In these longer games, I don't think Charles wants to give up too many cards, especially Anthem of Spring, which is incredibly important. So we're going to see that card come back later. In the meantime, though, 5 go again.
Good old hammy whammy. Threatening a facsimile of a Frostbite token, right? On hit it'll kind of tax the opponent, but Charles is just like, hey, I'm just going to block it out.
Between the Stony Wootenhonk discussion yesterday and the hammy whammy, we are very we are very pork centric today.
The block makes a lot of sense here. You just want to play the defensive game, and Charles on Briar is doing a very, very good job of that, right? Being able to stem the onslaught of Lexi, thought to be one of the most aggressive heroes in the entire game, and this is how you combat that with just great blocking, occasionally, being able to block for 4 with a single card that's not a defense reaction is such a big deal.
Michael Feng playing the 3 of a kind here, the first instance of 3 of a kind. It's going to cost you 1. You draw 3. The caveat, you have to play from the arsenal. You have 1 more activation of Voltaire, and drawing into a Searing Shot, it looks like a Lightning Surge and another hammy whammy.
Yeah, this is an interesting 3 of a kind because he's already activated his Voltaire once, so he can only do it 1 more time. Without Bullseye Bracers, this means that the turn is much less wide than it could have been.
Oh, and he draws into a Remembrance. That doesn't help you at all from the blocking perspective, but with the 1 prevention, you have a potential. Is that a 3 block? Is that Tome of Harvests?
I do believe
Evergreen.
I do believe that is an Evergreen. Yeah.
We're going to see a hit here because he's going to take 3. If that was going to block 3, you could have potentially thrown the gloves in front of this, but I don't think you care about this particular damage.
Yeah, no, your hand's gone anyway. You don't really care about the taxing effect from the hammy whammy. It's just the damage at this point, and you have enough of a commanding life lead where you can be like, hey, I'm just going to save my Grasp of the Arknight for something that really, really matters.
All right, well, getting a little bit of work done here. Michael Feng just thanking his lucky stars, like, all right, we did this. Like, we finally got there. The 3 of a kind managed to convert for 4 damage. The cycle with the Crown of Seeds yielded a Remembrance. Doesn't block for anything, so no help for Charles Dunn. Does maintain an arsenal. Hey, look at that. Heart of Final.
Interesting. Heart is an interesting call for this deck, right? Doesn't block at all, but it does give you life, and you can use that to pitch to stuff like your Crown of Seeds, so you still get extra value out of it. I always love seeing these kind of sort of niche cards like Heart of Fiendel get into these kind of decks, even though it doesn't block at all.
+1 from the Endless Arrow.
It does have Go Again. Oh, so yes. It has Go Again from Lexi's hero ability, right? He turned up the lightning card in his arsenal, thereby giving the next attack Go Again. So, yeah, you can get that +1 here, which is a really nice break point.
Looking to commit an Autumn's Touch and a Scar for a Scar to meet this halfway. The recursive
you
effect.
Block it.
Endless Arrow is probably one of the more valuable cards that Michael Feng can hold on to. Yes, and the first utilization of the Rain Razors because of the recursive effect of Endless Arrow and the nature of Charles Dunn's approach. Michael Feng is probably saying, I want those 2 cards to really get familiar with each other.
Oh, no, looking at Charles' hands, too, he's got to be pretty bummed because he does not have a D-React. Even this, I think he's going to be fishing for one here. Even this Crown of Seas will not cover this up. It still is going to leak 1 point of damage through, which is huge, getting that Endless Arrow back. Absolutely insanely powerful card, especially when you have your Rain Razors active for the entire turn. Pumping all of the arrows up for 2 is just is a big deal. There's a reason why everyone calls this such a big, powerful card.
And we're not done yet because Lightning Surge looks like Michael Feng may have found a seam. He's going to go try and exploit this. It's going to be only for 2 as it is a blue Lightning Surge, but it doesn't matter. The whole effect of Lightning Surge is flip it in Arsenal, get the Go Again, allowing you to buff some of those more important arrows. Like this one, another Endless Arrow for another 7 spot. This is going to be very difficult to cover up. We're seeing the first utilization of the grasp.
The same endless arrow. I mean, you have to, right? You can't let this endless arrow hit again. It already has, like, gone so much value. And those are the kind of turns that you really need from Michael. Like, that he really basically needs to kind of push that damage through. He has to really rely on those power cards. We saw in a previous turn that he basically had to use a not as optimal 3 of a kind just to push a little bit of damage through. And similarly here, we had to use one of his 3 Rain Razors just to kind of push a little bit of damage through, chip that life down. Still at 28, but that's what he needs.
Autumn's Touch, come to fight, raging onslaught in hand here for Charles Dunn. He's going to do a little inventory here. The old Spurlock maneuver, going to examine that graveyard because we are at a critical juncture of this matchup here where counting threats, realizing the potential reach, the burst. He's seen a 3 of a kind. He's seen a Rain Razors. He knows that there's 2 ofs left floating around, but what are they going to get paired up with? What are you drawing with the 3 of a kind? What are you improving with the Rain Razors? You got to know this, and Charles Dunn at 28, he has weathered quite the storm here as Michael Feng loading up a Falcon Wing and a Battering Bolt and just saying, pass.
Yeah, I mean, just what he's doing is setting up for an explosive turn, and we've kind of already talked about it. You can have your explosive turns with your power cards, but this is another way to do that, right? To have your explosive turn with essentially a 6-card hand and leveraging your life, which is exactly what Michael Feng is doing here. He's like, hey, he might end up blocking this depending on what he has in his hand, but this could be a turn where he's like, if I could really go wide, really push a lot of damage, keep my hand, and just take the 7 on the chin.
Charles with the used car salesman tactic of
he's got it. Yeah.
He's got the pen in hand. Just sign it. It's all good. No, we're good. Yeah, no, rust proofing isn't included. That's the caveat here. That's the extra spice that he's want to slide under the door here. Runic Reclamation, a 7 attack. Again, this deck absolutely just filled to the gills with these 7 attacks.
Yeah, and if I'm Michael here, I'm basically thinking, hey, what can I block with from my hand that will still allow me to have like a really good turn? I already have these 2 cards in my arsenal. Do I need this card to have the turn that I want, or can I just, toss this in as kind of like not a freebie, but just something to help mitigate the damage here? And that's exactly what he does. He's just kind of like, you're going to take 4 and block just a little bit of it.
All right, opening the salvo with a Falcon Wing. Again, a nice card to just start with and have in the arsenal. It's got the built-in Go Again. So 3 Go Again is the first arrow out of the quiver for Michael Feng.
Yeah, Falcon Wing from Arsenal is really how you want to start a lot of these, just because it has, innate Go Again. Ooh, well, this is another 3 of a kind.
Well, these are the turns you're going to have to bank off of. Now, again, when you're playing 3 of a kind, it's nice to pay 1 to draw 3. That is the dream, but if you got to play out of the arsenal here, the beauty is that Michael Feng still has 2 activations of Voltaire. Has he found something like a Bolton shot to get some extra high-end Go Again?
That's a spicy meatball as a Remorseless. Typically very good against your aggro Briar. Against this version of Briar, maybe not as much, but it does have that extra clause on it where it has that pseudo evasion, right? It kind of helps get around defense reactions. So that is going to come into play here, depending on what Charles has, and it looks like Charles is going to also take it on the chin.
Yeah, well, no defense reactions out of Arsenal, but with the Crown of Seeds, there's less opportunity to even want to do so because you're probably going to cycle a card. But in the hand here for Charles Dunn, lots of blocking available, and it looks like we're going to continue onward here. So we had a Falcon Wing, we had a Remorseless.
Yep, and here we, coming in for another 5. Also with Go Again, I think what's important to note, as Charles, you still see that Battering Bolt in the arsenal. So you know at least this Battering Bolt's going to be coming in here. He's going to leverage that Tunic to pay for it.
Oh my god, a red unmovable. I was wondering if I was I was seeing things here. Red unmovable, oftentimes a very cumbersome card because frankly, Lexi often doesn't go beyond 5 on her attacks, maybe 6 if you're ending with an infecting shot, but dropping in a 7 block out just that way. I mean, I guess the deck's loaded with blues. It's fairly safe to play an unmovable.
And here, another Remorseless, another way to, potentially threaten the possibility of a de-react in Arsenal. And it looks like Charles is just going to, bottom that for his crown, which makes a lot of sense.
And I love this because, like you mentioned, no respect on the remorseless text of taxing your life for the action points because he's not going to be playing many. So he's going to throw a come to fight in front of this. It's not getting the backing of an embodiment of Earth, but it doesn't matter. That Charles knows that these are the turns that Michael's going to have to lean on, those 3 or 4 attack patterns, and following up with a searing shot for 4 met at the combat, the chain link here with a sink below, but we're not done yet. We're going now with the Endless Arrow met with the gloves and the other card. And you can see both players are kind of picking up the pace a little bit, it seems.
Yeah, getting into a nice cadence of it. That turn, like attacking with Endless Arrow as the final arrow is very like a classic play, right? It's the on-hit effect that you care about the most, so you try to get your opponent to block as much before you do that. But, I mean, Charles obviously knows the power of Endless Arrow, and he's just like, no, you're not going to get that back. If you're going to get that back, it has to be with like a Codex of Frailty or something, because I'm not going to let that hit me.
Doing a quick count here. I lost count. He's too fast.
He is very fast.
The first swing of the Reaping Blade with a Rune Chant Chaser on top of it. Michael Feng without any Arcane Barrier. You got Spell Void.
Yep.
I mean, that's eventually going to come into play, you got to think. But Michael is probably also thinking, hey, if I can hit Shock Charmers on where maybe I catch you sleeping and I can just utilize it and just exploit those Shock Charmers, that's a possibility here. But for now, Michael Feng going to resolve the Rune Chant and the Reaping Blade, taking 4. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of this match where some of the blocks are going to be a little bit more agonizing to parse out in your mind. Charles Dunn is going to have to really keep track of what threats are left. He hasn't seen a Codex. He's seen only 1 Rain Razors. He can't necessarily be caught sleeping here.
Speaking of Codex, I do spy one in Michael's hand. And so basically what he did here is he used Lexi's ability to turn that card face up just to have that extra arsenal for the New Horizon. So he has 2 arsenal slots just so he can, be able to do what he just did here.
Great efficiency from the pitch. He's going to go ahead and pay for the Brothers in Arms to beef that up to 4. Now, the 2 float can represent so much. It could represent a activation of Crown of Seeds. You can also use the float. We saw a Oasis Respite that was floating around as well previously, so you might use it there. And he's got one in hand. So this might be ultimate utilization of your resources to maximize that blue pitch. 5 floating in here. I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be a utilization of Crown and maybe covering up the rest with that Oasis.
That's here we have just possibly a 3-block plus. Just a 3-blocker, yeah.
All right, so he's going to block it again. Then on hit from the Bolton shot doesn't matter because there is an arrow in there. So he's just going to take some damage. He's going to go through using the Sift as a 3-block. Doesn't have the benefit of an Embodiment of Earth to give it a little bit more oomph, but Charles Dunn has been resilient in this matchup, and you got to think that Michael Feng, we've seen him pitch some Rain Razors. We've seen him pitch some red infecting shots and some hefty arrows. Charles has to be aware, you got to think, that the reckoning is coming. Yeah,
so I was really thinking and trying to decide whether or not Michael would actually attack with that Heatseeker in his arsenal, because he could have, right? He still had a card in his hand. But I like this. I like arsenaling that mystery card and saving the Heatseeker to have like a much more explosive turn, right? Instead of just running that out, running it into whatever defensive options that Charles had, saving it and planning for a much bigger turn. And we've been talking about this whole game. That's really where you're going to push these damage. You can't just throw damage here, willy-nilly, right?
So all of those red arrows pitched early are going to and have already started to reappear. But beyond that, we've gone through one cycle of the deck, and how many of those D-reacts have been used? And Kel, I mean, when it comes down to it, the logic, and some players might be like, why are you pitching away these powerful arrows? Well, you want to go through one cycle of the deck, you got to think, to weed out all of those D-reacts so that you have better opportunity later to convert on damage, as this 5 attack is met halfway with an Evergreen and a Warmonger's Diplomacy. Nothing doing yet, but another Endless Arrow is revealed from the Lexi ability.
Okay. Yeah, so I really like this. I really like what Michael's doing here. So I love how he led with that Heatseeker backed up by the Snapdragon Scalers, threatening a pretty threatening card here, but sandbagging maybe an even more threatening card with Endless Arrow, a card that Charles didn't know about. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to attack you with this card, and then possibly later come in with a more valuable card. I really like what he did here. I think it's an excellent play. And then following that up with the 3 of a kind to just make sure your hand is as big, chunky as possible. Excellent play.
Nice. And here comes the hamstring shot. On hit, your attack, I believe, is going to cost you an extra 1. Not that Charles is really concerned about it. I think if Charles is seeing a 4-arrow turn, he is probably going to turtle up here and take as little damage as possible. Ultimately, it's an arrow, and you got to think if Michael Feng knows that Charles is playing this very defensive deck, that he's probably got everything. He's got his knives and forks loaded up in that quiver as well, not just arrows. He wants every possible threat so that he can toss back at Charles. But those early pitches of the threatening arrows are finally coming back. Red hamstring shot is the second arrow after that heater. 5 go again on the stack.
Yeah, I've seen some duds in Michael's hand, to be honest. Since we have played 3 of a kind, he cannot play anything from hand. It has to all be from arsenal. And he's got 2 non-attacks in hand. He's got this Codex, and he also has an ice card. I'm not exactly sure which one it was. But either way, they're basically duds here.
Look at this, and you got to love this. He found a seam, and like we said, and is going to go ahead and tap onto those Shock Charmers to push through where possible. Charles Dunn now at 10. He stood so tall at 40 for so long, and opting in this case with the prevention from the Crown of Seeds and the 3-block. No recursive effect. The Endless Arrow gets covered up nice and tight. Michael Feng, though, with a card in Arsenal.
I would guess he's putting the ice card in Arsenal, so you can use Lexi's hero ability to turn it up to get that extra Frostbite token, but perhaps not. Perhaps he put the other card, which I think might have been a Bolton shot. Typically, I do like the Bolton shot in hand, so you can get the maximum value out of your Voltaire, but I can definitely see a line here. I do see an ice card in hand, so it could have been the Bolton shot into the arsenal.
I mean, sometimes if you're anticipating the it's a death touch.
It's a death touch, spicy.
Yeah, I love that card. I mean, sometimes if you're going to pocket the Bolton shot and you've been pitching those Rain Razors for so long, oftentimes you're just anticipating the come up so you can open with the Bolton and then beef it up. As my good friend Mike Torek says, we're due. And Michael Feng may have thought that, but no, it's not a Bolton shot. It's a death touch.
It's a death touch, which is Michael talked about this in the interview that he had with Brian Gottlieb. I really, really like this kind of like techie death touch in this Lexi deck. It's because he wanted more blues, he was saying in the interview, and they're just, he wanted one that had like a nice punch, and Death Touch as a 1-for-4 as a blue with a pretty nice on-hit effect is really, really nice when you can arsenal it, and then leverage all of your arrows with go again, do your shenanigans, and then finish it up with a Death Touch. Hopefully your opponent has blocked a whole bunch and, still get that on-hit effect.
All right, so what happens when you play these very drawn-out defensive-style games is eventually pee-pee pause. So Michael Feng here is just going to take a quick break as a refresher, as he's just been going real heavy here in terms of trying to lay it on thick against this Briar list. And your initial thoughts here on where we're at in this matchup, because both players are slowly coming down, but you got to think that Michael Feng is probably running out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's super tight play on both sides, right? Me, as someone who really, really is a fan of Lexi, who's been a big fan of Lexi for years at this point now, really, really admiring some of Michael's plays, setting up for these really big explosive turns, not just running his stuff out into Charles' obvious massive, like, wall of block. And also on Charles' side, has been doing an incredible job of just absorbing all of the damage that Lexi's putting out. And Lexi, that's saying a lot. Like, Lexi's known for being able to push an absurd amount of damage, and it's been a really, really interesting back and forth. This isn't a match that I am seen a ton, because this Briar deck is kind of like the new hotness, right? It's kind of like one of the new big techs of this this event here, but also like the past couple months in the competitive season. I know it's been spoken about in hush whispers among the competitive crowd, but I think it's really cool to see on the big stage.
The old hush whispers. Those are the ones you got to listen for, frankly.
The hushed whispers.
The hushed ones. But I like what Michael's approach is here, which is capitalizing on the Falcon Wing to have these 4-arrow attacks, which are going to expend a lot of the defensive capabilities of Charles Dunn. And beyond that, he has lined up the Endless Arrow with the Rain Razors. And I think that Michael Feng has clearly identified that eventually he's going to run out of gas. So if you're going to connect with an arrow, it should be Endless Arrow. And if you're going to be doing so, you got to come up with some rabbits out of the hat, being that Rain Razor. So we're back at it here. It is the 11th round of the national championships here in Las Vegas. 9-1 Michael Feng, your Pro Tour Baltimore champion, versus Charles Dunn, equally at 9-1 with a 3-life deficit here, but Michael Feng is not done. Again, he has lined up. We've seen the death touch in here in a battering bolt. A big boy. It's 6 go again.
I love how we're like mind melding, because I literally thought to myself, this is a big boy battering bolt. This is a pretty nasty card. It has a really, really nice on-hit effect that threatens a lot of extra damage. And yeah, this is another one that's just like, hey, you kind of got to block me. And Charles is very happy just to toss these 3 blocks in front of it.
Tunic's still up. You can crown for free, and Arctic Incarceration, a wonderful card here that's basically going to create 3 frostbites, all for free. It's just for showing up. So Charles Dunn's going to have 3 frostbites paying over the top when the 2-card hand here, unless that's a 7 attack in your arsenal, you got to pay 6 to get it out there. But we've seen how much Charles values the arsenal, so it might just be a pass and see you later. Let those frostbites thaw out.
I mean, yeah, this is a game where the arsenals really, really, really matter, because you have Crown of Seeds on Charles' side, you have your New Horizon double whammy, big explosive turn on Michael's side, and once again, I really like how Michael just did not run that Death Touch out where he could have. Instead, he's like, hey, I'm going to save this for a turn where I can maximize the card equity, right? He just wants to take as many cards from Charles as possible and be able to eke through those extra points of damage. He's done a great job of actually keeping Charles off of the embodiments, which is great, helping prevent those breakpoints. But
Remorseless now. Yeah. Opening up with the go again, pitching a looks like is that a drill shot potentially? And we're going to meet this on the battlefield with the Fate Foreseen. And again, Remorseless stopping D-React from Arsenal. So no problems here. And again, if you know that, if you see that Charles Dunn isn't going to use the Crown of Seeds in order to just cover up the rest of the breakpoint, it's because he's probably completely content to either take the 1-point tax to send 7 or just say, screw it, I'm just going to pass right back.
Yeah, he probably doesn't care that much about the on-hit effect here. The on-hit effect really punishes go-wide decks, and this Briar is not a go-wide deck. This is, your big fridge Briar. Hey, here we have that Death Touch. Nice on-hit effect on the Death Touch. Can actually threaten a decent amount of stuff. This is something you do want to block.
It's a red one, too. Okay, so Michael Feng here running both the blue and the red. And
I love it.
The wonderful part about the red ones here is that it's also acting as a popper against against Dromai, so to help shore up that card. A lot of the initial builds of Lexi post Outsiders, I saw Death Touch in that in those lists, and it's nice to see it kind of wheel back in order to perhaps just be an offensive threat or a defensive capability as Warmonger's Diplomacy, both players choosing violence.
They woke up and chose violence. Lexi, Warmonger's Diplomacy is a great card into the meta, particularly good against certain heroes. Against Lexi, it's pretty mid, honestly. As you see here, both players Windmill Slam War, and as Lexi, you just Windmill Slam War because you got the arrows. It prevents you from playing your ice shenanigans, prevents you from playing stuff like your 3 of a kind, but it does not prevent you from playing stuff like your Rain Razors, which is an instant and thereby not affected by Warmonger's Diplomacy. And Michael's like, hey, I got a big turn here. Here's a +2 to all my stuff.
Yeah, Warmonger's Diplomacy, again, that scene in the artwork, as you see, that's actually Charles Dunn trying to convince you to buy an old Buick.
Right,
so, yeah. There's the Rain Razors opening up the turn here. It is going to be 2 on top of every arrow possible, but Michael Feng is trying to figure out what is the best way to load this up. You see a Heat Seeker in the arsenal, ready to close out, maybe bookend a big turn.
Ooh. I see some spicy stuff in Michael's hand. He's got this Bolton Shot. Maybe he has. So he's got is this a blue Bolton Shot into a nice old Drill Shot there?
Well, Drill Shot is going to perhaps tax if it goes through. Again, it's only a blue Drill Shot, but it's still a breakpoint. Still requires some. It still requires a response.
Yeah.
And no embodiment here, though. So it's actually going to connect. So this drill shot's going to get value. We're going to put a -1 token here on the Tunic. It looks like,
that Tunic,
yeah, Charles is perfectly content as next thing up is a...
Oh, interesting. It looks like Michael's hand was a heavy blue, right? Because this is a blue infecting shot.
It is a blue infecting shot that was basically followed suit after that blue drill shot. This is the danger of going so deep into these games. You're running out of those big attacks, and he's going to go ahead and pay for this last heater and cover it up with a Command and Conquer and a Fate Foreseen paid for by an Arctic Incarceration, and nothing doing. And I think Charles, seeing a bunch of blues come out and another red that did nothing for him, he is playing without an arsenal here, though, so that's got to be significant.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And, like, that kind of turn is possible, especially in a list like Michael's, where he basically said, he's like, hey, I wanted to run a lot more blues because, you know, it feels better on these big turns if you have at least a blue, but also into the meta where you're playing against a lot of other ice heroes. But the downside of that is having a turn like that where you have your Rain Razor's turn, but instead of having like a bunch of sweet reds, you got a bunch of your blues. It made the blues better, don't get me wrong, but it's a turn where, you know, it could have been a lot better if the deck was built a little greedier, I would call it.
Michael Feng found the other Rain Razors here. The question is do you want to load up for a bigger turn? Do you want to just send 1 or 2 arrows and pocket the Rain Razors here for a bigger, you know, 5 or 6 card hand? Or are you trying to maybe bait your opponent into thinking, well, if he lets this pass, maybe I can catch him off guard here. It's going to be a small little attack, and oh no, it looks like Charles Dunn is going to be coming out on top of this exchange as the block of the Fyendal's Fighting Spirit with the lower life total gains you a life.
Yeah, at this point, every point of life is a really, really big deal, right? So just going up 1, you know, given how hard Michael is fighting to just chip him down, that's much, right? And like you said, I think Michael just wants to set up for a much bigger turn, pocket that Rain Razors for a turn where you can really, really get, you know, maximum value, where a turn where you can have like a 6 card hand, and taking the E-Strike to the chin here is, you know, telegraphs that to me, right? It telegraphs to me that, you know, Michael has a hand that he thinks is worthy of just going down to 3 here and just trying to, you know, maximize value. And yep, here's that Rain Razors.
And here it is, exactly. Charles Dunn expecting chocolate chips, but oh no, it's raisins, my friend. It's Rain Raisins.
Delicious.
Is opening up the attack pattern here. The opening salvo is going to get 2 on top. All your arrows getting a little hat, a little +2 action. Why not? As it looks like an infecting shot is waiting in the wings as Charles Dunn at 9. Not necessarily close to the edge, but close enough. Can see the potential demise here. Opening with the Rain Razors. You've got the initial activation of the Voltaire. What arrow are you loading up here?
Yeah, some important things to note here are that Charles is prepared for this turn, right? He has card and arsenal, so he can maximize his use out of that Crown of Seeds. He's got, you know, full grip. He has his embodiment. So this is like a good case scenario for Charles, even though Michael's attempting to kind of pop off as you were. And Bolt and Shot's a great way to start, right? You know, seven go again, threatening reload, which is a big deal when you have your like bow equity this turn, right? You've already activated your Voltaire once.
I think all things considered, Charles has got to be happy with the fact that this explosive turn, he's lined up pretty decently. He's got a card in arsenal, he's got his Tunic up, and he's got an embodiment. If he's going to withstand this assault, he has all his ducks in a row. But how close is Michael to closing this out? He has used, I believe, is that his second Razors? I think there might be one floating around, or is this his third?
I think this might be the third.
Okay, well, last bastion of hope here, and this is not a bad way to do it, as you do have that fat red arrow, the big threat, the infecting shot is waiting in the wings here, but you've got to address this. This is a bolt and shot for 7 with the go again. Raging Onslaught is just going to block 3.
Yeah, I mean, just blocking 3 here, possibly considering activating the Crown. That's what I'm thinking he's considering here, you know, checking the card in the arsenal, but
no,
opting not to.
Yeah, looks like he's happy to take it here. Raging Onslaught blocks for 3. Bolt and Shot would otherwise have a on-hit effect if there was not already a card in Arsenal for Lexi Livewire.
Yes. Yep, reload only works if there is no card in the arsenal. Still threatening, at least 2 more arrows, right? 1 more from Voltaire, and then we have that infecting shot. So, I mean, Charles has to think about this. This is perhaps one of the reasons why he didn't do this. He's probably like, hey, this on-hit effect isn't the thing that I might not, need to prevent. Maybe there's something much more detrimental that I need to save my crown activation for. So he's just going to take the 4 here, go down to 5, which makes a lot of sense to me. Ooh, another infecting, just all the infecting shots. This is a nice one. We saw a lot of blues in the last couple turns. Now we have the reds, right?
I like this. I think that Michael Feng has basically lined up this turn to be designed precisely like this. We're going to get the Rain Razors alongside some of the more threatening arrows in in his arsenal. It's going to be a blue infecting shot at the end of the day. It still counts as 5, but it's got go again.
I just want to point out the power of that embodiment right there. Charles was able to cover up that 7 attack infecting shot with just 2 cards, which is is very, very good.
So he found that nasty remembrance.
Oh yeah, there it is.
I said there's go again. There's no go again on this, but it looks like again that remembrance, that card so many people hate, but Charles Dunn probably hates the most right now, as it blocks for nothing. It is merely a brick in your hand, and he can't really do much as there's no equipment block left. It's a an Anthem of Spring. You can't even combine it to block with the remembrance. You can't even throw it out there to the wolves.
Yeah, I'm just thinking here on whether or not it's going to be rough. Like this Blood Rot Pox is going to be kind of rough. Do we know what the final card in Charles' hand is?
It's the Remembrance.
Oh yeah, so it's a 2-pitch. Yeah,
you can't even pitch to this. This is
ouch.
An absolutely back-breaking peel off of the Crown of Seeds, and Charles Dunn down to 2. Michael Feng has been just relentless, and Charles Dunn finally getting to this, showing some weakness, because it's not just a remembrance. I believe he drew into that Heart of Final,
which also
doesn't block.
Yeah, good thing to know. At least he can at least pitch the heart to the crown and gain some life in this situation, because he does have less life than Michael, and then still get the value out of the crown. So I mean, there's a little bit of a silver lining for Charles, but if Michael's able to just put up the pressure here, Charles is in a tough spot. Like definitely. I think this is a blue, by the way. This is a blue drill shot.
Blue drill shot. Covered up nicely here. Again, Charles Dunn has to be very protective of his life total. He's got a 0-block card in hand, a 0-block card in arsenal. That remembrance, he hasn't even had a chance to play it if he wanted to. He's too close to the edge.
Yeah.
But you can always pitch with the Heart of Final. You do have an unmovable, so that's a great way to just cover up a big attack and gain a life. So you got to like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, Michael doesn't know this, but this is a turn where going wide will really pay off for you. Unfortunately, Michael does not have a back pocket arrow. He doesn't have an arrow in his arsenal ready to go. So he's basically on the whim of Voltaire, which is going to limit his arrow shots to 2 this turn.
Infecting shot for 4, +1 off of Voltaire.
Yeah, infecting shot's pretty rough. And here we have it. Like we said, we talked about the Crown of Seeds pitch into the heart, going to gain 1 point of life. So turning that into, maybe even better than a block at this point, depending on how many cards Michael can attack with this turn.
This round's on me, blocks for 3 naturally, but with the prevention from the Crown of Seeds, you're covering up that nicely. And Charles Dunn actually walking away better off than this attack started, as he's up to 3 now. And we're just going to pitch the unmovable, toss the Reaping Blade, and hey, now this is lethal. Now we're getting to the greasy margins, my friend.
Well, yeah, like the decks are thinning, right? Like we're really coming down to the wire, and it's one of those situations where, as the Lexi player, some of your power cards don't really do much, right? Like your 3 of a kind at this point in the game, when the decks are so small, might not, it might just deck you. It might not actually do anything.
Starting off with a blue Winter's Bite, pay or discard, opting to pay the cost here. Again, with the decks this thin, you don't want to lose cards to those types of effects. A Codex in hand here means that Michael might be trying to peel cards out of the hand and then catch them off guard with the Codex when he decides to crown.
Codex got pitch. We have a spicy little Death Touch in the arsenal. And, once again, Bolt and Shot, just kind of a nice little bread and butter card. It really, easy card to just slam down with Go again with your Voltaire. And
bread and butter at the breakfast place this morning, $27.
I mean, I believe it. I believe it.
All right, well, there's the Codex giving a Frailty token and a Ponder token. We're going to go with a Falcon Wing with the go again. The Command and Conquer meets it a Death Touch. I think that's a blue, and he's going to go ahead and cover this up with the Oasis Respite. Michael Feng must be beside himself, as now it's not just Charles Dunn that's the enemy. It is the clock. Both players very comfortable at 9-1, but nobody wants to give an inch, let alone a mile here, as it's Charles Dunn with the 1-point lead here. Michael Feng very thinned out. 3 cards left in deck for Michael Feng.
Yeah, it's really, really coming down to the wire. Michael needs to pull a Hail Mary at this point just to push enough damage to come through in the end here. We see a Searing Shot in the arsenal.
Oh, he found the Remembrance again.
I mean, for Michael Feng, that's probably pretty good here. That Remembrance is going to act basically like activation for the Crown of Seeds. I think we're seeing a lot of blues in Michael's hand. Here we have there's a Frostlock coming down.
Frostlock, and it's fused as well. Why not? It's going to go up to 4 here.
Yeah.
We just got word from Space that there's going to be 3 minutes added here, injury time, we'll call it, as 4 attack. Go again, Frostlock. Charles just waving, saying, okay, hold on here. The Tunic value is going to be utilized here. You said that maybe it's opportunity to cycle the Remembrance, but he's going to use it instead to use the Oasis Respite here.
Yep, I mean that seems like the play here. Oasis Respite is just going to cover this up nice and neat. And at this point, if you're Charles, like, he's been on the defensive game this whole time, and this is where it comes down to. He's just like, hey, I just got to cover up these last couple attacks, that Michael has. He's got 3 more cards in his deck, a couple cards in hand, card in arsenal. I just need to get through these, weather the storm, and I'm golden.
Both players so close. Bolton shot blue, and before the attack values even tossed out there, Sift thrown in front of it. Arctic Incarceration, why not have 3 Frostbites that are on the house? It's not like Charles Dunn is really going to be... I mean, he could just pitch the 6 and send it, and I think that's the right move here. It's not about overpaying here or whatnot. It's just a matter of saying, I'm just getting cards out of you. This is a weapon that I can swing with. You don't have that luxury. Your bow loads. It doesn't swing. So this is where Charles Dunn can lean on that kind of advantage. Yeah,
Michael literally has no cards in his deck, and it's like, this is lethal. And so every single card from his hand is just one step closer to the death knell. And yeah, you block 2, take 1. This is a card that you want to block with. This is one of the less impactful cards. This is a card, that will preserve your life and possibly still give you the best possible chance at winning the game, depending on what your opponent draws. And that's what he's doing. He's setting himself up for the best possible scenario here.
Oh, but this is a very difficult hand to navigate. You have a unmovable. You have a Heart of Final that is no longer going to give you life.
That's true.
So you have 2 cards that can block 1 arrow. This is going to be very difficult. Plus the Remembrance. Keep in mind, that is lurking about. That is a landmine floating around. You don't want to step on that at the wrong time. 2 from the Searing Shot might as well be 3. This is a card you have to respect, and with a Runic Reclamation in hand, you got to think that that's what he's going to be tossing in front of this.
Yeah, I mean, you have to block at least one thing in front of this, right, so you don't immediately die to it. And just as you called, it looks like the Runic Reclamation is just getting right in there under the bus. Michael's hand, let's see, he still has another Searing in arsenal. I can't imagine he has a lot of power cards left, like red cards, for example. We're seeing a lot of blues, and at this state of the game, that's basically what you see.
Michael Feng might be anticipating the fact that if he's tracking it, he knows that there was a pitched unmovable that hasn't been accounted for. There's the Heart of Findel as well as the Remembrance. He could just be thinking, I have this. I got to figure out how to get that arsenal out of the way. Is that a Codex in his hand?
I was gonna say, I think that might be a Codex of Frailty, which let's just call that a big game here, right? Being able to pull your most powerful card from your bin, and when your bin's this big, it's basically like a tutor for whatever the best card is in your deck.
But beyond that, Charles also knows that. He saw it pitched earlier. He's saying, I am not dunking on this arsenal at all. I am not getting you a free card out of hand. You want to play that Codex? Play it. But this is such a pivotal moment. As you can see, the clock has essentially expired. We're going to have a couple turns left here. Again, the clock that you see on the screen looks like it's all she wrote here. Michael Feng realizing that he might just... okay, so we just got word here. Michael has essentially scooped here to Charles Dunn, and it was such a difficult process here because you are